What is up, guys? Alpine Gremlin again here with some more World of Tanks. Today we're going to be taking a look at a vehicle that I've been compiling gameplay for and, figuring out tactics for a very long time. It's my new favorite tank in the game, and it's probably one of the most deadly vehicles on the battlefield if played correctly. This is the Leopard 1. And I don't think I've ever played a vehicle that is so perfect in doing so many different things, but at the same time can be so terribly unforgiving if you make a mistake. So other than the Leopard, the other tier 10 German medium tank on the tech tree would obviously be the E50 Ausf M. The E50 M and the Leopard 1 share some characteristics, but they also differ very, very much so in certain categories. So what do I want to say first? Well, if you watched my PTA video, and if you've played through the Leopard PTA at tier 9, you'll know that you won't be surprised to find out that this tank has absolutely zero armor. This is a theme that has been going on in the newest German line, for at least since the Panzer. So if you've been grinding this line, the fact that it has no armor really shouldn't come as a surprise to you. But to be perfectly honest, this tank doesn't need that armor, because it pretty much can do anything else incredibly well. It's got an amazing gun. It's very fast. We'll actually look at some of the hard stats anyway. We won't even worry about the hull and turret armor, because it's not going to save you. You can encourage an occasional auto bounce angle. If it hits it at if the shell hits your tank at an awkward angle, and it strikes a surface in which it's an auto bounce, the shell will ricochet. However, this happens maybe 10% of the time. You cannot rely on your armor. So if you can't rely on your armor, what can you rely on? Well, first of all, we'll talk about the things we can see on paper. It's got 1950 hit points, so that's, average tier 10 medium tank kind of stats. Same hit points as something like the T-62A, stuff like that. It's right in the middle. It weighs about 40 tons. With my current setup, it weighs closer to 40 and a half. It's got 830 horsepower, which means that it has a pretty good power to weight ratio and also has a top speed of 65 kilometers an hour. This is very, very fast. And there are light tanks in the game that wish they had this speed. Traverse speed is 54 degrees per second. This tank's very quick on its feet. It's very good at changing direction and juking shots. It's good at dodging shots because it's very agile. It's very good at getting around people's flanks. The other things, it benefits from a very exceptional view range. With my current setup, I can encourage 470 meters of view range with this tank. And that makes it a very effective passive spotter. It's not so much good at active scouting because it's large and it's easy. If it gets within spotting range, it's not as stealthy as some light tanks in the game. So active scouting, it's a big target if it gets lit. So I wouldn't recommend it as an active scout unless you're in a position where you absolutely have to and you're going to lose the game. Signal range is good, but there's a certain point. 750 is enough. With my current setup, I've got 853. The turret traverse is below average with 36 degrees per second. However, you can turn your hull very, very quickly in order to basically compensate for that. And the fact that you have no armor, it really doesn't matter at what kind of angle you present your armor to the enemy. I would prefer head-on because that you have less chances of getting modules damaged. However, honestly, if you're getting shot at from the front as opposed to the side and rear, it really doesn't matter. That's why I'm not even talking about the armor. If you get hit, it's probably going to penetrate. So let's talk about the gun. The gun is overall probably the second best gun in the game. Second only to the Waffenträger Pauf E100's 128 millimeter. It's 105 millimeter, the L7A3 board cannon. This is actually the gun, if I'm correct, that was used on the M1 Abrams prototype back in the 70s, before they upped the caliber to 122 millimeters. It's got 6.9 rounds per minute. The actual gun reload time on my setup is 6.88 seconds, with 268 average penetration and 390 damage. That is a well above average penetration number for a medium tank. 268, you'll find that you can get through a lot certain areas of tanks that other medium tanks would be able to penetrate less often. Dispersion at 100 meters is 0.3. That is, again, the second most accurate in the game, right behind the Waffenträger's 128, which has 0.29. A 1.9 second aiming time. That is lightning fast, and you can find that you can take snapshots and they will go through. They will hit what you're shooting at. Firing on the move and snapshotting is something that this tank is very, very good at. So we've got now the biggest strength of this tank, and it's something that really isn't, you can't describe on paper, is its exceptional camouflage rating. Right out of the box, this thing has a very, very good camouflage value, meaning it's very difficult to detect, especially if you use concealment such as bushes and trees. If you take it a step further and you actually train your crew in repairs, like in camo like mine are, then your tank, and you put, I put camouflage on the tank as well, then this vehicle turns into an absolute ghost. You can find that depending on what the vehicle you're shooting at is, you can basically spot for yourself and Invisitank vehicles at, less than 300 meters in some cases, depending on what their crew is like, what their vehicle's base view range is, stuff like that. There are certain vehicles that you're really going to want to, that you won't be able to get away with Invisitanking with unless you're at an extreme distance. These include the Waffenträger E100. Batshats and other Leopards with good crews are also probably going to spot you if you reveal your location. Other medium tanks, again, with good crews in general, other tier 10 mediums can counter you easily. Things that are prime targets to being picked on, though, are blind Soviet heavies, blind German heavies, especially if they have bad crews. You can get away with basically doing a lot of damage to them without them ever knowing that you were even there, unless someone else spots you. Which brings me to my other point. The things that you need to know, the things that you need to be aware of when driving this tank, because it's so fragile. The fact that it can't take a hit, you need to be aware of your surroundings at all times. You need to be aware if something is coming up to spot you, and if you get spotted, that you find another position immediately and relocate. Because if you don't, you're going to start taking shots because you have no armor. And people in this game are going to shoot at you because you have no armor, because they know that they can do damage to you. If they had a choice between shooting at an E100 and you, they're going to shoot at you because they know for a fact that they can penetrate you with minimal effort. So, what is your defense against it? And additionally, in close combat, before I go on to the point I want to make, in close combat, people are probably going to YOLO rush you. Scouts are going to YOLO rush you. Heavies are going to YOLO rush you. Everyone is going to YOLO rush you, especially if you are alone, because they know they can do damage to you, and even if you manage to kill them, you've probably lost all your hit points at this stage of the game. You probably have taken some kind of module damage, which we'll get to a little bit. The Leopard is susceptible to certain types of module damage, and you're effectively crippled. So some YOLO, some baddie player in a scout tank or in a heavy tank has just YOLO'd you and has effectively taken you out of the game. You no longer have health to trade when you really need to, and you might have taken multiple hits to your either ammo rack or things like your gun. And so you want to avoid this. Positioning in this game is key. positioning in the Leopard is probably the most important thing that you have to consider when driving this tank. It's basically the ultimate medium tank challenge. And if you pass that challenge, you can get some crazy results out of this machine. So, again, you want to, in general, with the Leopard, you're going to want to stay at a distance, depending on what you're fighting. The Leopard, I'm going to try and explain this. The Leopard is probably the most effective at two polar opposite ranges. The Leopard excels either inside 100 meters against slower tanks such as heavies and turretless tank destroyers. When fighting against other mediums and fast heavies with good view ranges, your optimal range is probably outside 300 meters. For example, I'll bring up another medium tank that I love very much. If we're talking about, let's say you're engaging a T-62A and Object 140, you're going to want to avoid all close combat with this machine, with these two machines. They're great brawlers. The Leopard one is not a good brawler. They out reload you. They might not out DPM you as much, but they out reload you, and they out armor you on the turret. All a T-62A and an Object 140 have to do is really get up right in your face and face hug you, and you're screwed because you can really only shoot at their turret. What you want to do is you want to use compared to their guns, you have an absolute laser pointer. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to stay in cover, preferably with some concealment between you and the enemy tank, and you're going to want to plink away from them from long ranges. If, however, the target is something like a T-110E5 that's alone and separated from his team, or a T-95, or even a T-110E5 or other assorted heavy tanks, you're going to want to get in close, inside 100 meters, because you can use your superior maneuverability in order to get around them, stay away from their gun, and put flanking shots into them. Now again, you can do this to those vehicles at long range as well, assuming you're not spotted. As soon as that brings us back to the fact that as soon as the Leopard is spotted, the jig is up. You need to move, otherwise you're going to die. And so you need to have an escape plan, preferably mapped out ahead of time. So basically, when you're driving this vehicle, you want to keep in mind the ranges at which you're fighting. You want to keep in mind, you want to make sure you have some form of cover and concealment between you and the target at all times, unless you're coming in for a close quarter flanking maneuver against slower vehicles. Things like that. You want to avoid brawls with other mediums, because let's face it, because the Leopard one is good at a lot of things. Brawling with other medium tanks is not one of those things. The tank, it just doesn't have the armor, and it just doesn't have the armor and resistance to module damage that other medium tanks have, and therefore it really doesn't do well in a one-on-one brawl. So that's kind of how I have to explain how to play this tank. I've played over 900 battles in this thing since I got it. I absolutely adore it. But it is a very unforgiving tank to play if you put yourself in a bad position. Positioning is probably 99% of this vehicle's play style. And you want to realize what you have, what you want to use your strengths. And this is with tanks in general, but especially with this vehicle, because it has such specific strengths and such specific weaknesses that you want to be aware of what you have over enemy vehicles and what you don't have. You can't outbrawl a T-62A or an E-50M. You can outspot these vehicles, and you can outsnipe them with your very accurate gun, because honestly, you can hit weak points with this reliably at probably over 400 plus meters. You can still be popping people in their lower plates, in their hatches, things like that, because the gun is just that amazingly accurate. So if you can avoid putting yourself into positions where you're going to take hits, you can rack up a lot of damage that way. And let's face it, if you can save your health till the end of the game, you're a devastating force on the battlefield, like any medium tank is. But again, it's just more accentuated with this tank. Let's talk about crew skills. Basically, you want Brothers in Arms first of all. Brothers in Arms is going to feed into your camouflage bonus and your rate of fire, which are two important which are probably the two most important things on the vehicle, the gun and the camo value. The speed is also really important because it'll obviously allow you to get out of a situation if you find yourself in trouble. Or if you need to react to an enemy flank being pushed. So you want brothers in arms. That's probably the first thing that you should have trained up. Or, forget that, because I usually say that with a lot of tanks, but in the Leopard 1, you probably are going to want to train either camo or repairs first. Once that camo or repair is trained up to 100%, you're going to want to immediately swap your commander's main skill first perk out for Sixth Sense. Why? Because if you're driving a Leopard 1 without Sixth Sense, you're doing it wrong. That's why I would highly recommend grinding a crew out before you get to the Leopard 1, so that you have a crew, with at least 1 or 2 skills preferably. Because you're going to want Sixth Sense on the Leopard 1. If you don't know you're spotted in the Leopard 1, the only way you're going to find out if you're spotted in most cases is when you start taking hits, and that's when you start melting. Chances are, if you start taking hits, chances are there's going to be multiple people shooting at you, and you're going to die very quickly. So, Sixth Sense, okay. You need Sixth Sense. You're also going to want camouflage, because you're going to want to be able to find a nice bush. You're going to want to do as much damage as you can without being detected. And then once you get detected, you move on and do the same thing over again. I play a more aggressive Leopard driver. I'm more of an aggressive Leopard player than most people. My buddy Volker will argue that repairs are not something you want to train on this tank, because he's a much more passive player. He's still a very good player in this vehicle, but he's more passive than I am. I find that I get myself into situations where I want a faster repair time, just because of my nature. I'm a little bit more of an aggressive player. But you're going to want crew. So repairs are optional. If you play a more passive Leopard, you should focus on things that will increase its overall performance, such as its driving capabilities, or your turret rotation, your accuracy on the move, things like that. My commander is training in recon and situational awareness, because these will both extend my view range. My gunner is currently on training his 4th skill, snapshot. This will allow me to be more accurate when I turn the turret if I need to react to things. Smooth ride on my driver, so I am more accurate on the move, and safe stowage on my loader, because the ammo rack does take a lot of damage in this tank. It's one of the things that is very susceptible. You're going to find a reason why you're going to want to avoid taking hits is because one of the most common problems you'll experience driving this machine is you will get hit. A lot of times a shot will go in here in this area, because this is around where the ammo rack is stored and right next to the driver. So you're going to find that your most common form of damage will be you get tracked and you'll get ammo racked. You have to make a choice. Do you want to get out of there immediately, or do you want to risk your tracks being repaired and hopefully the next shot doesn't detonate the ammo rack, or the next shot doesn't fly in and damage it again? Another form of damage, you're going to take some turret ring damage. If you get shot here in the turret, a lot of times it will damage the turret ring. Your driver will get killed a lot, and your gunner is also susceptible to being wounded often. Those are the most common module and crew damage that I take in the Leopard. So let's take a look at, now that we've talked about crew skills, let's go ahead and look at the equipment I fit. Medium caliber tank gun rammer, obviously, to decrease my reload time. Improve ventilation to help with the overall performance of the crew. Now, I was reading on the wiki that improved vents doesn't actually give that much of a bonus to the crew. So I'm gonna do some more research on that, and I'm gonna basically update this video if I find something else. But as of right now, I use improved vents. If not improved vents, probably coated optics, because that'll give you a nice boost in your ability to see other vehicles, and a vertical stabilizer, because you're gonna do some firing on the move. You want to increase your chances of hitting the target. And so all these factors contribute to this ridiculous gun reload time, a ridiculous camo value, and overall just a very effective package. In terms of my consumables, I fire 45 APCR rounds, which are the standard ammunition for Tier 10 medium tanks. I don't fire heat. I don't need it in this tank. The penetration is so high that I'm going to get myself into situations where I really only need to fire APCR. And 15 high explosive rounds, obviously, in case I encounter waffles. Small first aid and repair kit, and this is probably one of the few vehicles that I will actually use a consumable on. I do not use an automatic or manual fire extinguisher. I use chocolate because the chocolate contributes to my camo value, my reload, my driving, all these other things. Now, this means that if I get set on fire, my game is effectively over. However, the chance of fire is so low that that it doesn't really happen that often. It's a diesel engine, so your chance of fire is much lower than your gasoline-powered compatriots in other vehicles. However, that means that in that 1 in 100 game, that 1 in 100 games that you get set on fire, your game is effectively over unless you're at full HP when you take the fire damage. So anyway, that is my overview of the Leopard 1 in the garage. This is going to be a little bit longer video than usual. Let's take a look at some gameplay. So unfortunately with this video, because it's so long and because I'm so limited in my recording and rendering software, I basically use Windows Movie Maker, I don't want to overtax that program. So for purposes of being practical, I'm going to leave the after action report out of these battles. However, I will link I will post them to Watt replays so you can look at them there, and I'll leave the link in my description. However, I won't show you. You can see my damage done, you can see the kills I get, and so for that reason I'm gonna go without the after action reports, just to make it easier on my software. So anyway, this is Redshire. We're doing an encounter battle. You're going to notice that their team is very, very heavily based on mediums. They have a lot of mediums with that event going on the North American server for medium tanks, which I'm loving, but at the same time it does make playing the Leopard a little bit more difficult than it normally would be because there's so many tanks that can counter you. In most cases, it's kind of hard to invisi-tank medium tanks unless you're at a good distance. The tier 10 mediums, there are Leopards here with good view range that will spot me if I reveal my location, if I fire my gun. And so it's, I'm not going to be able to really invisi-tank as effectively as I want to be able to. However, I have to do my job and I have to go to the middle near the flag to see if I can lock that down. Now, with the amount of heavies we have, they should have no trouble pushing the 9-0 lines. So I'm hoping that my heavies can get through that flank as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, I'm setting up here to see it. I just lit 3 of their medium tanks. However, because I wasn't in the greatest spot, that really wasn't the best bush, and part of my tank was sticking out. So obviously those mediums with their view range spotted me. But I'm gonna try and be cheeky here. I want to try and shave off as much of their HP as possible. And that's only a fraction of the mediums that they actually have. E50M's coming around. I'm double bushed. He doesn't spot me. Put a shot into his lower front plate. However, that did reveal my location, despite being double bushed. Now, I like to exploit this little part when coming from this side in my mediums. It is a very, very nice little location. Assuming, however, that you're not in this kind of situation against all these medium tanks. Now you can see the STB was waiting for me. He was waiting for me and he killed my driver. So I had to use my first aid kit on that because obviously mobility, I need to be as fast as possible in this battle. I need to exploit that. He's a vital component that I need to keep alive. I do lose 355 HP, but I have no interest in getting into a hold-on fight with an STB. E50M on 40 HP, rushed in, got taken out by the E5. However, he did spot me again, so I can't go back out into those bushes yet. Also note that they do have 2 artillery in play, so I don't want to stay in one location for long. Spotted the STB again. Now, he didn't actually spot me that time. I was able to utilize the bushes to avoid being detected. I could see him turning away, so I put a shot into the side of his turret as he's changing position. And with the Leopard's accuracy, you will find that that is something that you are able to do consistently. Hit weak points and hit parts of tanks that they think they are relatively safe. But you can clip those parts because your gun is so accurate. Another thing you want to notice about the Leopard's gun is how fast the shell travels as compared to other Tier 10 mediums. This means that you don't have to lead your targets as much at long distance. You'll notice that the shell hits almost instantaneously as it leaves the barrel. It is something you will have to adjust to at first because you're used to leading targets with the lower velocity shells. However, you'll notice the shell is instantaneous, depending on the range. I actually didn't get lit there from that FV, so I'm going to pop out again and put one into the E50M's lower front plate. Now that did light me. The E50M likely has a pretty decent crew on him. So we're noticing, the situation has deteriorated much, much faster than I thought. All of our heavies that went to the 9 and 0 line basically got completely rolled. The mediums flanked around, and their heavies in here, and their heavy tank destroyers pushed them out. Mediums flanked them. They got screwed. And you'll notice we have a mouse and an E5 that decided that they didn't want to be part of that heavy push. So now they're useless being here on the cap, and we've now lost a flank. The E50M actually lit me there, and he put one into me. You can see the Leopard, side of his turret, put one right into him. Back up again because I have been lit. 2 artillery in play. I really don't want to feel the sting of those guns. So I know I've lost my spot. I'm gonna peek in the bushes again, inch out. E50M hasn't spotted me. Put one into him, back off because I know I got lit. Remember that there's a 3-second delay on the 6th sense. So you might think that you're not lit, but you get shot, then it goes off. It's for balancing reasons, obviously. 6th sense takes a little while to go off before, again, about 3 seconds until after you've been spotted. Now that I've finally realized, I've realized 2 things. One, we're going to get surrounded very, very quickly. That we've lost the 9-0 line, and we're going to get completely encircled. We're losing 3-7. Now, I noticed, though, that everything but the artillery has been lit. Everything but the artillery has been lit. So what this means is that there's nothing on the 1 line. Nothing. Not even anyone on our team. And the 1 line in this kind of situation can prove to be a very strong position. Because if I go here, it will give me side shots on all these medium tanks. And we really need to mop up these medium tanks before the rest of their team gets here. Otherwise, we're going to get completely surrounded. Situation is looking rather dire here, and I'm going to try and push the momentum a little bit by changing up my location and putting some flanking fire. And most of those mediums are full HP, so shit has to start happening. So I'm moving down here along the road. I'm not sure which bush I should really go to, so I'm taking a look to see which will give me the best range of the best firing line. So I decide to pick this bush. I have a good side shot on that Leopard. And he pulls back right as I'm firing at him, and I get lit. So now they know I'm here. E50M bounces off of me. That was a blind shot. I miss the Leopard. Get lit again. But I really, at this point, I'm losing a little bit of care for the situation because I know that I have to start doing damage. I didn't get lit from that shot. The STB actually got nailed. Leopard 1. I'm moving out because I want to put a shot into the Leopard. He's making a run for it to probably go and find another avenue of approach. I track him. Do get lit again because, again, he's a Leopard, and he is going to spot me from there. Now, I have split their attention a little bit, so now they have to focus on more than one opponent from more than one direction. However, you could see the rest of their forces are starting to show up. Take a shot at the E50M and bounce. RNG is really giving me a hell of a time. I see the Leopard and the E50M. I decide to put some cover in between myself and the E50M. You can see now a lot of these tanks are low HP, a lot of these mediums. So at this point, we're losing 4-9. We have very few tanks left alive. The Mouse is almost dead. The Patton is actually at full HP. And the Jagdtiger is pretty much at half. I'm a little over half. My focus now has switched from doing damage to killing tanks. Because at this point, it's really time. I need to start really focusing on my game here. I need to start carrying, and so that means I need to start taking guns out of the equation. I need to mitigate my incoming damage. So I decide to go for the E50M first, who gets hit by Artie. Shot on the move. That's the good Leopard's dispersion on the move at work. I kill the E50M. Next, I want to take out the Leopard 1. I fire and I miss, and I get spotted. Because I'm not in the best concealment right now. Leopard 1 coming around again. However, the E50 comes around the corner. I fire and miss. He puts one into me. Leopard 1 comes around. Put a shot into his turret. Jagdpanzer E100 is coming around the corner. I want to back up around the hill. Artillery fires at me and misses. M48 Patton. E50, take out the E50 as he comes over. M48 Patton is my new target because he's on low HP. I need to take his gun out of the fight. He fires. I go for it. I know he's got to reload. Kill him. My team did a good job beating up on those two Leopards. However, there are still some higher HP targets in the area. But I want to take out these guys. Leopard 1 comes around. Put one into his turret. Take him out. There's an FV, other Leopard 1 comes into the hole, FV goes in there with him. I can't quite make the shot. However, I see an E100 with his back to me. Put a shot into him. Take him out. The Leopard 1 misses me. That was lucky on my part. And you can see all this is happening within a very short span of time. I'm moving as quickly as I can to end this. You can see I've secured 5 kills and I've brought the score back to 9-12. However, there are 4 of them. There are 3 of them in the cap circle. Down there, the Jagdtiger is contesting it so that they can't cap more. However, I need to think of a plan to attack these guys. I see the WZ-120 on the map coming in to get in a flank shot. He spots the Jagdpanzer E100. He fires at the Jagdpanzer E100. However, he just bounces. Jagdpanzer E100 rotates. You can see as I'm coming around now, I see the Leopard 1 is going in to attack the Jagdtiger. Jagdpanzer E100 just fired. That means that I can get around him, put a shot into the Jagdpanzer E100. I have to keep this Jagdtiger alive, so I've got to kill this Leopard. There's 6 kills. Leopard's down. FE is coming over the rise. I get into a position to put some fire into him. Jagdtiger's taking shots in the flank. I come around, put a shot into the FV's turret. The good gun depression allows me to do that. The Jagdtiger puts one into him. Alright, we're at 6 kills. The Jagdpanzer E100 and the T-30 just got spotted. Luckily, he bounced me. If he didn't bounce me, because I noticed him at probably at the perfect time. I saw him. He spotted me because I wasn't in the best cover. I was not concealed. I was in plain view. He's less than 300 meters away, so he's going to spot me, regardless of how good my camo is. But as soon as I saw him, I backed up. He fired at my side, and it ended up just glancing off of my upper front plate because of an auto bounce angle. You can see the same thing happen on my turret there. Again, auto bounces do happen on this tank, regardless of how little armor it has. That T-30 could have ended my game right there with his alpha damage, but he fired. I backed up at the right time, and he missed. I know he's got a long reload, so I know that I can get a cheeky shot into him before moving on. Now, this is an interesting situation. Jagdpanzer is proximity spotting me right now, so I need to get. First of all, I need to lose that in order to secure the to make sure the arty isn't going to shoot at me. Now I leave the Jagdtiger alone, and you can see I get a little bit confused around at this point. I think that about going after the Jagdpanzer 100, but I decide that it's probably a better idea to kill the T-30 first. So I'm going to loop around the hill, get behind the T-30. The T-30 is definitely, I can kill him in a couple more shots, so I know that. So I come around, see if I can get some flank shots on the T-30. I know that the Jagdpanzer 100 is probably going to be pushing the Jagdtiger at the same time of the T-30. I spot the T-30. I fire, and that spots me. I do get lit. However, I see the artillery, one of the artillery pieces. I decide to go after him, use my gun depression to take out the M40. T-30 got lit. Now, it's important to note that the Jagdtiger now knows that I am not with the Jagdtiger. So, the Jagdtiger puts one into the T-30. Jagdpanzer E-100 pushes on the Jagdtiger. The T-30 is looking at me. I fire. He fires and misses. I know that I can kill this T-30 now. I take my time with the shot. Put one into his upper front plate. Jagdtiger puts one into the Jagdpanzer 100. He's now one-shottable for me. And I kill the Jagdtiger. Now all that's left is the artillery. Now what's important at this point is what I decide to do. I make this decision very closely. I'm at 9 kills, and I really, really want another Pools medal. But I also want to win this game. Now the M40-43 is not the fastest artillery. I know that I can catch him. If it was something like the Batshot artillery, I would definitely get on the cap and force him out. Because at only 3 minutes and 10 seconds remaining, I probably wouldn't have enough time to hunt the Bat Arty down. However, I am going to hunt this artillery piece. So I'm just gonna speed up the time. 3 minutes left on the clock. I'm checking all the normal artillery locations for this guy. He's not over here in the corner, in the K0 corner. Come around here on the 0 line to see if I can spot him. My bad. Alright, so here I am. I accidentally pressed the wrong button. My mistake. But yeah, so here we are. I'm checking, decided to check this corner of the map. And I spot the artillery. And you can see he did not spot me because the Leo's camo is very good. But again, it is an artillery. Put one into him before he's even able to realize. I don't even get lit because he's behind a bush. And I decide to blind fire. And there's 10 kills. I made a few blind shots, so I actually did close to 6,000 damage in this game. And again, you'll get to see all this. I'll post it up to Watt Replays. 10 kills, that gave me a Pools medal. This was my master. This was another Ace Tanker badge. It was a Top Gun too, obviously, because of the 6 kills before then. So anyway, guys, what I need to do now is I need to decide whether or not I'm going to have enough space in Windows Movie Maker to fit a second game. So if not, I'll just have to do a separate video on this next game. But I'm going to record it anyway. So you might get this video with 1 or 2 games, depending on what my software says. So if I can't finish it, then thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. But if not, let's take a look at the next game.